Recently I had a few viewers who asked me to do some videos on anxiety, particularly how do you stay focused or how do you stay positive when you have anxiety. I hope this video helps you to think and rethink your relationship with anxiety. Fear is another word for anxiety, yet the label anxiety is more socially acceptable. To say that you have anxiety is more acceptable to say that I'm afraid, especially for men, because we're not supposed to be vulnerable. And if I say I'm afraid of whatever, snakes, or afraid of edges, heights, as one of my fears, fear of water, fear of social situations, whatever your source of your fear or your anxiety, it's much more acceptable to say I suffer from anxiety, I have a label. So that's the first point, is that anxiety is a label of which is describing the experience of fear. Phobia is the Latin word for fear, as far as I know, Latin or Greek. Phobia is a fear. Social phobia is fear of social situations. So fear is in the phrase social phobia. It's a fear of social situations. Now it's an anxiety that I get or increases. I have all the symptoms. We know the symptoms of anxiety are shortness of breath, sweating, palpitations, headaches, loss of sleep, pain in your heart area, stomach upset or stomach pain, constipation, nervousness, increased worry, being irritable, and so forth. They're all the symptoms of anxiety that you may relate to. But they're the physical symptoms in the body and in the psychology of ourselves. They're how we experience fear. What are your biggest fears? Have you ever actually thought about it? Have you ever thought about what are your biggest fears? What are your fears? Have you had that conversation with yourself? Have you had it with a friend or somebody else? Think, what are your fears? Because when you discover what your fears are, you're getting very close to discovering the source of your anxiety. Now we know we live in a world of quick fix medicine, and medical community love anxiety because it's a label they can put on people which allows them to prescribe medications for anxiety. And there's a load of medications, and those medications have many side effects and often lead to increased anxiety, increased insomnia and other problems. So as a herbalist, we try and take a natural approach. We try and help you get to the root cause of your anxiety. Now, at the root cause of your anxiety are your deepest fears. And maybe you've never gone that deep, and maybe you don't want to go that deep, and that itself is a fear. But you've got to start by putting your finger into the water, touch the water with your toe. That's the start. If you fear water, I have a fear. I get anxiety to do with swimming. I'm trying to improve my swimming. I'm learning to swim. I can swim a little bit, but I'm trying to improve my swimming, and I get anxiety when I never swim at a depth, but even if I'm swimming in a pool where I'm not at a depth, I get anxiety because of breathing. I don't have the proper breathing or the proper stroke. But what dominates my experience of swimming is fear of drowning. And fear of drowning is fear of loss of control, fear of death. Water is symbolic of emotions. So deep within me, there are emotions where I feel fear to be out of control, loss of control, loss of life, loss of identity, kind of a drowning of who I am. A disappearing of myself. And it's probably one of the other sources of anxiety I have has been, attached to meaning. Is I have a lot of anxiety about living a life that has no meaning, or living a meaningless life. So for me, the anxiety acts as a driver, as a motivation. That motivation to live a life of meaning. But that can become obsessive then, where if I'm doing nothing, I can have anxiety because I don't value doing nothing. And one of the principles of mindfulness that I've spoke about in a video before is non-striving. So for me to reduce my anxiety about having meaning, I have to non-strive, not to strive to be better, accept who I am, enjoy the moment, stay in the present, because that's all we have. And a lot of anxiety can be driven by escaping from the past, running from the past, dreading the past, trying to get away from the past and into the future, where the world will be better and life will be better and I will be better and there'll be a better version of myself, and I won't have anxiety, fear or dread. But you've skipped the present, and the only way to really embrace the future is to embrace the present moment. The only way to embrace a future free of anxiety is to embrace the present moment. Because if you don't embrace the present moment, you're not staying with your fears. You're not embracing who you really are at your deepest core. And your fears are there for a reason. They're there to caution you. They're there to warn you. They're there to alert you to the risk of dangers. But some of these dangers are worth risking. It's not like they're going to kill you. You know, some of these dangers could be the danger of being embarrassed, the danger of feeling shame, the danger of feeling anger, the danger of feeling a failure, the danger of letting people down. Dangers, but they're fears. So yes, it's danger for you because it provokes you to feel. And I think for me that's one of the core understandings of anxiety, is that it's fear of feeling. We do not want to feel vulnerable. Human beings have survived millions of years, billions of years, evolved, and maybe we won't survive much longer as a human species because we're driving and feeding the world of fear. We're driving fear, we're pushing fear everywhere. You know, you have to look in a certain way, you have to be a certain weight, you have to earn a certain income, you have to live in a certain kind of house, you have to speak in a certain way, you have to have a certain level of education, you have to have certain kind of friends, certain interests. Yes, we're all socially conditioned, but there's a lot of fear drivers of fear in society that seek to control us, ultimately control us, so that we buy into this striving for this life, that if I have all these things I'll be more accepted, more loved. But in the meantime we're getting burnt out and we're getting depressed, and that's something I'll talk about in the next video. It's the same approach to depression. You know, depression ultimately is a loss that we haven't either acknowledged or understand or aware of. So fear is the deepest experience of anxiety. Fear drives us to live a protective life, to live behind walls and behind doors. And that's what anxiety is. It's fear of going out, fear of being seen, fear of being vulnerable, fear of being known. But that's the path to our ultimate happiness, is walking the path of the unknown within ourselves. Because we have to do this work within, because fear has been internalized. Because, for example, I may be afraid of a dog. You know, I remember when we were kids, we used to pass this neighbour's house and they had an Alsatian, and I was always afraid the dog would attack us. We always had this belief that if you clenched your fists, you'd shut down the fear glands that were leaking out fear and the hormones. The dog would smell and he'd come for us and attack us. But by the time we got past the house, we let go and we ran. But it's real fear. And embracing the fear, facing the fear, doesn't make it any easier. But what it involves is courage. Because courage is the antidote. Courage is the medicine that we need to overcome fear and to overcome anxiety. So the dog could bite me and I could suffer pain, but probably the biggest pain is the phobia, the fear that exists before the dog even gets close to me. The actual bite itself might not be that painful, unless you're a child, of course, and dogs can be quite dangerous. Are dangerous animals going into waters in Australia where there are sharks, for example. I wouldn't recommend that as a way of dealing with your fear of sharks, because the sharks will actually eat you eventually if they catch you, or certain snakes. I'm not advocating that you embrace fears that put yourself at risk, but you've got to try and learn and understand what are the fears that are preventing you living your life. What's stopping you from being you? That's what fear is. It stops you from being you. So I'm not asking you to live a life of fearlessness, and doing crazy things. I just want you and me to live the life we were born to live our life purpose, and not to be driven by fears. Fears of what people think, fears of what I think myself. Sometimes I need to take a break from thinking. Thinking too much is a problem, it's addiction in itself. Thinking too much fuels anxiety. Don't think. Relax. Practice mindfulness meditation. Deepen your self-confidence in yourself, self-acceptance, and slowly nurture your true being so you can overcome the fear. A lot of fears, a lot of anxiety is driven by stuff that goes on in relationships. So sometimes we need to trust a little bit more, be a little bit more vulnerable with our partner, our friends, and our family, to allow them to get a little bit closer. Because ultimately phobias and the way we behave when we're in a state of anxiety are defense mechanisms. We build a wall or several layers of walls around ourselves so that nobody can get in, nobody can get close to us, so we don't get hurt, or we don't have to feel the pain, the loss, and the life that is there. So what the cure, the antidote, and the medicinal cure for anxiety is feeling what is within, is believing that whatever I'm feeling, shame, self-hate, disgust, rejection, anxiety, failure, all these terrible dark things within us, they are part of life's experience. They're not who I am. But by learning to negotiate that terrain, it's like an archaeological dig. Get in there and dig in. Find out what's in there. Reflect, learn to reflect. Learn to journal your fears in a journal, and who knows what will come up. Take small steps then to overcome your fear and face them and develop courage and become brave. Don't be afraid. Live the life you were born to live, and you will overcome anxiety, and anxiety will become a gift to you. Every time you experience fear or anxiety, you won't see it as a problem. You'll see it as an opportunity. So I have anxiety about a situation that I need to face. I don't know how to handle it, so I need to do a bit of planning, a bit of a strategy. I need support. Herbs will help, and having a better diet and sleeping well and having friends, all these social things and non-medical approaches to life that I talk about in my videos. Learning all these natural ways to live and to deal with anxiety, mental health issues will build confidence and self-belief within you, and reduce your anxiety and ultimately reduce your dependence on medications. That's one of the goals of my channel, is to really awaken people to the potential of herbal medicine and food as medicine. That people who are trapped in fear, trapped in anxiety, don't have to go onto medications. They can deal with these issues through psychological support and reflection and spiritual journey. It's a spiritual journey we're on, and fears are a great way to awaken us to what we need to do next. So to finish, I want you to identify what is the fear. List your fears. Identify your fears first. Come up with a list of all your fears, as long as you want. And then identify what is the fear on that list that I can deal with today. I want to get that off the list. Okay, so I'm trying to deal with my fear of drowning, by swimming, by improving my swimming. But I can only really improve my swimming if I deal psychologically and emotionally with the fear that comes with that sense of drowning. If I don't deal with that, I'm going to still struggle with the swimming. So I've got to deal emotionally, psychologically with the fear of whatever that is, loss of control, fear of death, and just to relax in the water. So I want you to identify what fear then can you deal with today, that you can take one of those fears off your top 10 list. If it's in your top 10, you might have 20, whatever. Start wherever you want. You can have 100 fears. But what we want to do is reduce those fears, that list of fears, down to a very short list. And of course, it's normal to live in the world and to have fear, a fear of certain things. We're not going to do away with fear. Fear is our friend. Fear is our friend. So What we want to do is understand fear, overcome it, and build it into our lives, that we don't let it cripple us. And that's what anxiety is, allowing ourselves to be crippled by fear. So I hope you found this useful. Let me know in the comments below what you think in relation to this idea that fear is at the root of anxiety, and if it helps you. And I hope to see you in a video very soon. Take care. Bye bye.